Okay, let's talk about something we've all felt. You know how some days you feel like you can conquer the world and other days you just can't? Today, we're digging into the science that explains why our brains have these on days and off days.
I mean, think about it. You have those days where you're just on fire. You're creative, you're focused, problem solving feels effortless. And then maybe even the very next morning, you're staring at a simple task and it feels like climbing a mountain. What is going on there?
Well, it turns out the answer is way more interesting than just, being tired or not getting enough sleep. A really big study from Stanford University back in 2016 looked at the brains of hundreds of people, and what they found tells us something amazing about our brain's secret operating mode.
So, let's dive into this puzzle. What exactly is going on inside our heads that makes our performance so variable?
What these Stanford scientists discovered is that our brains aren't just a single engine that's either on or off. Nope. It's more like they're constantly switching back and forth between two completely different modes.
On the one hand, you've got segregation mode. Just picture a big company where every single expert is working alone in their own private office. They're all getting work done, but they aren't really talking to each other. Then you have integration mode. Now, this is like the whole company coming together for a massive brainstorming session. Everyone's connected, ideas are flying everywhere, the communication is incredible.
Okay, so segregated specialists versus one big collaborative team. But how much of a difference does it really make which mode your brain is in?
It's a fair question, right? Are we just talking a tiny little boost in performance, or is this a real game changer? To find out, the researchers had people do a famously difficult memory challenge called the NBAC test. It's basically designed to push your brain to its absolute limit. And the results were kind of shocking, honestly. When a person's brain flipped into that highly connected integration mode, the response time was an incredible 40% faster. Let that sink in. Not 4%, 40. That's a massive, massive difference.
And it wasn't just about speed. Take a look at this. In integration mode, people made way fewer mistakes. And this thing here, the drift rate, that's just a fancy scientific term for how quickly and confidently you make decisions. So, in short, this mode makes you faster, more accurate, and more decisive. It's the whole shebang.
This is all amazing, but it leads to a huge question. If this switch is so powerful, what controls it? What's the little trigger in our brain that flips us from that slower, segregated state into the high-performance integrated one?
Incredibly, the answer was something physical that the scientists could actually see just by looking at the participants. It was literally hiding in plain sight, right in their eyes.
So here's how it works. It's actually really elegant. Deep down in your brainstem, this tiny little spot called the locus coeruleus fires up. When it does, it releases a flood of a chemical messenger called noradrenaline. And this chemical does two things at the exact same time. It makes your pupils get wider, and it flips that switch, kicking your entire brain network into that super-connected integration mode. Your level of alertness is directly tied to your brain's processing power.
But great science isn't just about exciting results. It's also about being critical and looking at the details. So, let's put on our scientist hats for a second and look at the strengths and the potential weaknesses of this research.
First off, this study has some serious strengths. The main finding was replicated across 3 different large groups of people. In science, that's the gold standard. It means the result is probably real. They also used a super fast MRI to see the brain's activity in high definition, and they used some powerful statistics to make sure they weren't just getting fooled by random chance.
But like any study, it's not perfect. For example, that really fascinating discovery about the pupils, that was only tested on 14 people, which is pretty small. The study also didn't really factor in individual differences, like age or gender, and the 10-second window they used to analyze brain states, you have to wonder if it might have missed even faster split-second changes.
Now, one of the coolest things about this study was how they measured brain communication. The classic way of doing this is kind of like seeing 2 cars driving at 50 miles per hour. It just tells you that 2 brain regions are active at the same time. That's it.
But this study used a newer, way more dynamic method. It's like asking a much smarter question. Are those 2 cars hitting the gas and the brakes in perfect sync? See, this gives you a much richer, more detailed picture of how brain regions are truly coordinating with each other.
Finally, there's a huge challenge in this kind of brain research that you could call the lottery ticket problem. When you're testing over 140,000 possible connections, some of them are bound to look important just by pure random chance. To get around this, the researchers had to use some very clever statistical tools to filter out all that noise and make sure their findings were legit.
So, after all this incredible science, what's the bottom line? What does all this mean for you and me in our daily lives?
The main point is this: we need to change how we think about our own minds. Our brain is not a machine that's supposed to perform at the exact same level all the time. I think the researchers said it perfectly. Your brain is not a robot. It is an incredibly dynamic, adaptive, and intelligent system.
So here's the key takeaway. The next time you're having an off day and you just can't seem to focus, don't get frustrated with yourself. It's not a personal failure. Your brain is likely just in segregation mode, its natural state for rest and recovery. Trying to force peak performance, then, is like trying to sprint on a day you've set aside for sleep. It's just counterproductive.
And that leaves us with a final question for you to think about. Knowing that your brain has these natural cycles of high-performance integration and lower energy segregation, how might you change the way you structure your day to work with its natural rhythm instead of constantly fighting against it?